The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known universe. It floated in the empty space between three ancient star systems. It's a massive ring of metal and crystal that could hold millions of beings. Today, it held only 12. 12 alien species sat in their tall chairs. Looking down at the small human woman who stood alone in the center of the floor, Ambassador Elena Vasquez wore her formal uniform, the blue and white colors of United Earth. Her hands were bound in front of her with energy chains that glowed soft purple. Her face showed no fear. The Zerthi High Chancellor leaned forward in his seat. He was a tall creature with gray skin and 4 eyes that never blinked. His species had ruled the council for 3,000 years. They were the oldest, the strongest, and the cruelest of all the great powers. "You stand accused of crimes against galactic order," the Chancellor said. His voice echoed through the empty hall. "You have stolen classified council documents. You have spread dangerous lies. You have tried to turn lesser species against their rightful leaders." Elena lifted her chin. "I have done nothing but tell the truth." Sound like hissing laughter came from several of the council members. The Vrelian representative, a being made of living crystal, spoke next. "Truth. You call your wild accusations truth?" "I call them what they are," Elena said. Her voice was calm and clear. "Evidence, proof, records that your own people created and tried to hide." She looked at each council member in turn. These were the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Their combined fleets numbered in the millions. Their technology was thousands of years ahead of humanity's. They had crushed hundreds of species before humans ever left their home planet, and Elena Vasquez was not afraid of any of them. For 10,000 years. "This council has followed a secret program," she said. "You call it population management. I call it what it really is, genocide." The word hung in the air like poison. "Fine young species," Elena continued. "Species that are just learning to reach for the stars. Species that might one day grow strong enough to challenge your power, and you destroy them. Quietly, secretly, you poison their worlds. You make their people unable to have children. You watch them die out over generations, never knowing why." The Chancellor's 4 eyes narrowed. "These are lies. They are not lies. I have the files. I have the records of 147 species that your council erased from existence, and I have proof that Earth is next on your list." For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the Chancellor did something unexpected. He smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a predator who no longer needed to pretend. "You were never meant to find those files," he said. "Your species was meant to die quietly, like all the others. In another 10 years, your birth rates would have begun to fall. In 50 years, your population would have started its decline. In 200 years, humanity would have been nothing but empty cities and forgotten bones." Elena felt her heart go cold, but she did not let it show on her face. "But now you know," the Chancellor continued. "And because you know, because you have tried to share this knowledge, we must change our plans. We will not wait 200 years. We will deal with your species now, quickly, completely." "The galaxy will not accept this," Elena said. "When other species learn what you have done, other species will learn nothing." The Chancellor stood from his chair. He was nearly 3 meters tall, a giant of gray flesh and cold eyes. "They will see only what we show them. A primitive species that threatened galactic peace. A dangerous race that had to be contained. And an ambassador who was executed for her crimes against civilization." Elena understood then. She had known from the moment she decided to bring her evidence to the council that she might not survive. She had hoped that her sacrifice would mean something, that the truth would spread even if she died. But the council controlled all communication. They controlled the news that reached every planet. They could make her into a villain, a terrorist, a monster, and no one would ever know the real story. No one except the people of Earth. The Chancellor pressed a button on his chair. Suddenly, the air around Elena filled with floating screens. Each screen showed a different place. Cities on Earth, human colonies on Mars and Europa, ships traveling between the stars, billions of human faces looking up at the broadcast. "We want your people to see this," the Chancellor said. "We want them to understand that resistance is death. Watch carefully, humans. Watch what happens to those who challenge the Council." A weapon appeared in the Chancellor's hand. It was small and elegant, a silver rod that hummed with terrible energy. Alina looked at the screens. She looked at the faces of her people. She saw fear and anger and sorrow in their eyes, and she knew that these might be the last words humanity would ever hear from her. She stood as tall as she could. She pulled against her chains, not to escape, but to show that she was not broken. "My name is Alina Vasquez," she said, her voice carrying to every screen, every world, every human heart. "I am the ambassador of Earth, and I want you all to know that everything the Council said is true. They are afraid of us. They planned to destroy us in secret because they knew that if we ever had the chance to fight, we would win." Ah! The Chancellor raised his weapon. "Remember this moment," Alina said. "Remember what they did? Remember who we are. We are human. We do not surrender. We do not forget, and we never, ever stop fighting." The Chancellor fired. Alina Vasquez died standing up, with her eyes open and her head held high. She died looking at the faces of her people. She died with words of defiance on her lips. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, across the galaxy, something changed. It was not something that could be seen or measured. It was something in the hearts of 8 billion humans on Earth and 5 billion more in the colonies. Something that had been sleeping woke up. Something that had been divided became one. The Council had wanted to send a message of fear instead. They had created something far more dangerous. They had given humanity a martyr, symbol, a reason to fight, and humanity would make them regret it for the rest of eternity. The Zarathi High Chancellor sat in his private chamber, watching the reports come in from across the galaxy. It had been 6 months since the execution of the human ambassador, and everything was going according to plan. Or so he told himself. The truth was more complicated. The truth kept him awake at night. Staring at the ceiling and wondering if he had made a terrible mistake, humanity had gone silent. At first, it seemed like a good sign. The Chancellor had expected riots. He had expected desperate messages begging for mercy. He had expected the humans to fight among themselves, to blame each other for the disaster, to fall apart like every other primitive species before them. None of that happened. Instead, human colonies stopped answering communications from alien traders. Human ships disappeared from the common travel routes. Human scientists stopped attending galactic conferences. Human merchants stopped selling their goods at alien markets. Earth itself went completely dark. No signals came out. No signals went in. The planet was surrounded by a shell of silence that no Council probe could break through. "They are mourning," the Chancellor told the other Council members. "Primitive species often retreat into isolation after trauma. They will emerge eventually, broken and ready to accept their fate." But the Chancellor was not sure he believed his own words. He had sent scouts to investigate. 3 ships, equipped with the best stealth technology in the galaxy. They were supposed to observe Earth from a safe distance and report what they found. None of them ever reported back. The Chancellor told himself that this meant nothing. Perhaps the ships had mechanical failures. Perhaps they encountered unexpected dangers in human space. There were many explanations that did not involve the primitive. Humans somehow destroying 3 of the Council's finest vessels. But deep in his heart, the Chancellor felt something he had not felt in centuries. It was a cold, creeping sensation that started in his stomach and spread through his whole body. It was fear. On Earth, far from the Chancellor's worried thoughts, humanity was busy. General Marcus Stone stood at the center of the largest underground facility ever built. It stretched for hundreds of kilometers beneath the mountains of what used to be called Switzerland. Here, protected by layers of rock and metal and energy shields, the leaders of humanity had gathered. They came from every nation, every culture, every political group. Old enemies shook hands and embraced like brothers. Religious leaders prayed together in languages that had never been spoken in the same room before. Scientists who had spent their careers competing for grants now worked side by side, sharing every secret, every discovery, every breakthrough. For the first time in human history, there were no borders. There were no flags. There was only Earth. "The Council thinks we are grieving," General Stone said to the assembly. "Let them think that. Let them believe we are hiding in our homes, crying about our lost ambassador, waiting for death to come." He pressed a button, and the wall behind him lit up with images. Factories working day and night. Shipyards building vessels unlike anything humans had ever created. Laboratories where scientists studied every piece of alien technology humanity had ever collected. "We are not grieving," Stone continued. "We are preparing, and by the time the Council realizes what we have become, it will be far too late for them to stop us." A woman raised her hand. She was Dr. Yuki Tanaka, one of the greatest engineers in human history. "General, we still face a fundamental problem. The Council has millions of ships. They have thousands of years of technological advantage. Even if we build our entire planet into a weapon, we cannot match their numbers." Stone nodded. "You are right. We cannot fight them in a traditional war. If we try to meet them in open battle, we will lose. That is why we will not fight a traditional war." He changed the image on the wall. Now it showed a map of the galaxy, with Council territory marked in red. It was a vast area, covering millions of star systems. "The Council's strength is also their weakness," Stone explained. "They control too much space. They depend on supply lines that stretch across thousands of light years. They need fuel depots, communication relays, food production worlds. Without these things, their fleets cannot function." He pointed to several small dots scattered across the red area. "We will not attack their fleets. We will not try to conquer their planets. Instead, we will become ghosts. We will strike their supply lines and disappear before they can respond. We will break their machines and fade into the darkness. We will make them feel, for the first time in their long history, what it is like to be afraid." The room was silent as everyone absorbed his words. "But there is another part to our plan," Stone said. "Perhaps the most important part." He showed a new image. It was a picture of Elena Vasquez, taken before her death. She was smiling, her eyes bright with hope and determination. Ambassador Vasquez died because she told the truth. The Council killed her because they feared that truth. They thought that by killing her they could bury what she discovered. Stone's voice became harder, angrier. "They were wrong. We have copied every file that Elena found. We have translated them into every language in the galaxy. And when the time is right, we will share them with every species the Council has ever oppressed." He looked around the room. Meeting the eyes of every leader present, "We'll not just fight the Council with weapons, we will fight them with truth. We will show the galaxy what they really are. And when other species see the proof of Council crimes, they will have to choose. They can stand with their oppressors, or they can stand with us." General Stone took a deep breath. "This will not be a short war. It may last for decades, perhaps for generations. But we are human. We are stubborn. We are patient, and we never, ever give up." He raised his fist in the air. "For Elena, for Earth, for every species the Council has ever murdered, we will make them pay. Not with one great battle, but with 1,000 small cuts. With endless, patient, unstoppable revenge." The room erupted in cheers. Leaders who had spent their lives disagreeing now stood united. Scientists, soldiers, artists, workers, all of them brought together by shared purpose. Humanity was no longer a species of many nations. Humanity was a single weapon, aimed at the heart of galactic tyranny, and that weapon was about to be unleashed. The Varelian Mining Consortium was one of the richest organizations in the galaxy. They controlled 23 fuel depots scattered across Council space, supplying the energy that kept warships flying and trade moving. Their stations were protected by the best security systems money could buy. Their guards were trained soldiers from a dozen different species. None of it mattered. On a quiet night in the middle of empty space, a small ship appeared near Depot 7. It was so small that the station's sensors almost missed it. It looked like debris, like a piece of rock tumbling through the void. But it was not rock inside the ship. A team of 12 humans worked in complete silence. They wore black suits that absorbed light and heat, making them almost invisible to sensors. They carried tools instead of weapons. Their mission was not to kill. Their mission was to break things. The team leader, a woman named Captain Sarah Chen, gave a hand signal. Her people moved like shadows, crossing the space between their ship and the station in seconds. They cut through the outer hull without making a sound. They slipped past sleeping guards and blinking cameras. They found the station's main power core and attached small devices to its surface. Then they left, as quietly as they had come. 10 minutes later, the power core shut down. Every system in the station went dark. The fuel that was stored there became useless, locked in containers that could not be opened without power. The guards woke up to find themselves floating in darkness, their weapons useless, their communications dead, and on every screen in the station, a message appeared in glowing letters for Alina. The same thing happened to all 23 Varelian fuel depots. At exactly the same moment, across thousands of light years, without a single shot being fired, the Chancellor received the report and threw his datapad across the room. His advisors watched in silence as he raged and cursed. They had never seen him so angry. They had never seen him so scared. How is this possible? He demanded. How did the humans coordinate attacks across such distances? How did they bypass our security? How did they even know where those depots were? No one had answers. It was only the beginning. Over the following months, the attacks continued. Communication relays went silent. Food shipments disappeared into the void. Military bases found their weapons disabled, their ships unable to fly, their soldiers trapped without power or supplies. The humans never killed unless they had to. They never attacked civilian targets. They never struck at species that had not participated in Council crimes. They were careful, precise, and absolutely relentless, and they always left the same message. For Alina, General Stone called it the doctrine of endless consequence. He explained it in a broadcast that reached every corner of the galaxy. You took one innocent life, he said, looking into the camera with cold eyes. You thought that by killing Ambassador Vasquez, you would frighten us into submission. You were wrong. You have given us a purpose. You have given us a cause. And now, for every day that the Council exists, humanity will be there, watching, waiting, striking. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. We do not want your territory. We do not want your wealth. We want something simpler. We want you to never feel safe again. We want you to jump at shadows. We want you to wonder every time a light flickers or a machine fails if humans are responsible. We smiled, but there was no warmth in it. It's your punishment, not death. Something worse. Eternal fear. The Council responded with overwhelming force. They gathered their greatest fleet, 100,000 warships carrying soldiers from 12 species. They flew to Earth, ready to burn the human homeworld to ashes. They found nothing. Earth was empty. The cities stood silent. The factories were abandoned. The military bases were deserted. Humanity had vanished, but the planet itself was waiting for them. As the first Council ships entered orbit, weapons activated all across Earth's surface. Missiles launched from hidden bunkers. Energy beams fired from disguised satellites. Mines that had been planted in orbit months before suddenly came alive. The Council fleet lost 3,000 ships in the first hour. They retreated in chaos, their commanders screaming orders that no one followed. Humanity had turned their own homeworld into a trap, and then they had left, scattering across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. Where did they go? The Chancellor demanded. Where are they hiding? The answer was everywhere, and nowhere. Human colonies had been established in places the Council never thought to look. Asteroid belts, rogue planets drifting between stars, ancient shipwrecks that had been repaired in secret, hidden stations built into the hearts of dead moons. Humanity had become invisible. They lived in the dark spaces, the empty places, the forgotten corners of the galaxy. They struck without warning, and disappeared without a trace. The Council tried to find them. They sent thousands of search ships across known space. They offered rewards for information. They threatened species that might be helping the humans. Nothing worked. Captain Sarah Chen, now promoted to commander, led one of the most successful strike teams. Her people had disabled 47 military installations in 8 months. They had never lost a single soldier. She sat in the command chair of her ship, reading reports from other teams. Everywhere, humanity was winning. Not winning in the traditional sense, not conquering territory or destroying fleets, but winning in the way that mattered most. They were breaking the Council's ability to control the galaxy. Supply lines that had operated for centuries were now unreliable. Military bases that had never been challenged now lived in constant fear. The great machine of Council power was starting to crack, and in the shadows, something else was happening. Other species were beginning to question their masters. If the humans could resist, if the humans could fight back, then maybe the Council was not as powerful as everyone believed. Maybe. The galaxy was ready for change. Commander Chen looked out at the stars and smiled. Ambassador Vasquez had died hoping that the truth would set the galaxy free. Now, with every attack, every broken system, every message that said for Alina Huma, Nidhi was making that hope come true. The Council had wanted to end humanity in silence and shadow. Instead, humanity had become the shadow, and shadows cannot be killed. 3 years had passed since the execution of Ambassador Elena Vasquez. 3 years of ghost attacks and broken supply lines. 3 years of fear and confusion. And now, the Galactic Council was beginning to fall apart. The first signs came from the Selenari, peaceful species of tall, thin beings with silver skin and gentle voices. They had been Council members for 2,000 years, always following orders, always staying quiet. But now, their ambassador rose from her seat and asked a question that changed everything. If humans are the monsters the Council claims, she said, her voice carrying through the Great Hall, then why have they never attacked our civilian populations? Why do they only strike military targets? Why do they warn innocent workers to leave before they disable our stations? The Chancellor's 4 eyes narrowed with anger. They are clever monsters. They seek to confuse you with false kindness. Or perhaps the Selenari ambassador continued, they are not monsters at all. Perhaps they are simply a species fighting for survival, fighting against rulers who plan to wipe them out. The hall erupted in shouting. Some Council members demanded that the Selenari be punished for such words. Others, surprisingly, stayed silent. And in that silence, the Chancellor saw something that terrified him. Doubt the lies that had held the Council together for 10,000 years were starting to crack. The truth that Elena Vasquez had died for was spreading like a disease. Infecting minds that had been loyal for centuries, it got worse. Human operatives had been busy doing more than breaking machines. They had been making friends. In secret meetings on forgotten moons and hidden stations, they shared the files that Alina had discovered. They showed proof of the Council's crimes to species that had been oppressed for generations. The Kathrani, a reptilian species that had lost 3 colony worlds to mysterious plagues centuries ago, learned that those plagues were Council weapons. The Vorix, insect-like beings who had been treated as second-class citizens for millennia, discovered that their ancestors had once been a great spacefaring civilization before the Council secretly destroyed their technology, one by one. Species that had served the Council faithfully began to question their masters. Some started leaking information to human operatives. Others began sabotaging Council operations from within, and a few, the bravest ones, openly demanded answers. The Chancellor watched his empire crumble and felt a rage unlike anything he had experienced before. He had ruled for 300 years. He had crushed rebellions and destroyed rivals and maintained perfect order across millions of worlds. And now, because of one small species, one insignificant planet, everything was falling apart. He called a secret meeting with his most trusted advisors. They gathered in a hidden chamber deep within the Council station, far from any ears that might betray them. "We must end this," the Chancellor said. not with small attacks or limited responses. We must destroy humanity completely. Burn every world they might be hiding on. Kill every creature that might be helping them. His advisors exchanged nervous looks. One of them, an old Zerothi general named Korvax, spoke carefully. Supreme Chancellor, such an action would kill billions of innocent beings. Species that have nothing to do with the humans would be caught in the destruction. The political consequences, I do not care about political consequences. The Chancellor roared. I care about survival. Humanity must be erased, no matter the cost. He activated a hidden screen, showing a weapon that made even the battle-hardened Korvax go pale. This is the quantum cascade device, the Chancellor explained. It creates a chain reaction that spreads from star to star, sterilizing every planet in its path. We have never used it because the destruction would be too great. But now, we have no choice. He pointed to a star map, showing the region of space where human activity had been detected. We will deploy the device here. Yes, it will destroy 12 star systems. Yes, billions of non-humans will die alongside the humans. But when it is done, humanity will be gone. And the galaxy will remember what happens to those who challenge the Council. The advisors nodded reluctantly. Orders were given. A special fleet was prepared to carry the terrible weapon to its destination. But the Chancellor had made a critical mistake. He had forgotten that not everyone in his inner circle was truly loyal. Commander. Lyria was a Zerothi officer who had served the Council faithfully for 80 years. She had been present at Alina Vasquez's execution. She had watched the human ambassador die with dignity and courage, speaking words of truth even as death came for her. Those words had haunted Lyria ever since. Truth cannot be killed, only delayed. Now, Lyria sat in her quarters, reading the orders for the quantum cascade attack. She thought about the 12 star systems that would be destroyed. She thought about the billions of innocent beings who would die. She thought about the children who would never be born, the civilizations that would never rise, the futures that would be erased forever, and she made her choice. She copied the orders, the weapon specifications, and the target coordinates. She encrypted them using codes that only human operatives would recognize. Then she transmitted everything to a hidden frequency that humanity had been using for secret communications. The message was received by Commander Sarah Chen within the hour. Chen read the information and felt her blood run cold. Then she felt something else. A fierce, burning determination. This was exactly the kind of evidence that humanity needed. Within 2 days, information was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every species, every world, every ship with a communication system received the message. They saw the Chancellor's own words, ordering the deaths of billions. They saw the weapon specifications. They saw the proof that their leaders were willing to commit the greatest mass murder in galactic history. The response was immediate and devastating. 3. Council species announced their withdrawal from the Alliance before the day was over. The Selenari declared full support for humanity. The Kathrani offered sanctuary to human refugees. Even species that had been afraid to speak now raised their voices in outrage. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, the Chancellor found himself facing a room of angry accusers instead of loyal followers. You would have killed billions, the Vorix representative said, his insect wings buzzing with fury. You would have murdered innocent children to maintain your power. This council is finished, the Selenar ambassador declared. We will no longer follow leaders who plan genocide. The Chancellor looked around the room, searching for allies. He found none. Even his own species, the Zerothi, refused to meet his eyes. In that moment, he understood that he had lost. Not just the war against humanity, but everything. His power, his legacy, his place in history. It was all crumbling to dust around him, somewhere in the dark spaces between stars. Commander Chen received reports of the Council's collapse. She allowed herself a small smile. Ambassador Vasquez had been right. Truth could not be killed. It could only be delayed, and now at last, the truth was free. 10 years had passed since Ambassador Elena Vasquez spoke her last words to the galaxy. 10 years of war and revelation, 10 years of change that had transformed everything. The Galactic Council was dead. Its final meeting took place on a space station built by the Selenari. In neutral territory, far from any world that had been touched by the conflict, representatives from 47 species gathered in a great circular room, sitting in chairs that had been designed to accommodate beings of every shape and size. General Marcus Stone entered the room slowly. He was old now, his hair white, and his face lined with the weight of years. But his eyes were still sharp, still burning with the same fire that had driven him through a decade of war. He had lost friends in this conflict. He had made decisions that cost lives. He had spent sleepless nights wondering if he was doing the right thing. But now, finally, it was over. The former Chancellor of the Zerathi sat in a special chair at the center of the room. His 4 eyes, ints bright with arrogance and cruelty, were now dull with defeat. His gray skin had become pale and thin. He looked like what he was, a broken old creature waiting for judgment. General Stone took his seat across from the Chancellor. Between them, a table held a simple object, a holographic projector displaying the face of Alina Vasquez. She was smiling, frozen forever in a moment of hope and courage. The Selenari ambassador, a tall female with flowing silver robes, stood to address the assembly. "We are gathered here to witness the end of an era," she said. "For 10,000 years, the Galactic Council ruled through fear and secrets. They crushed any species that might challenge their power. They committed crimes that we are only beginning to understand." She looked at the Chancellor with something between pity and contempt. "Today we pass judgment on the last leader of that failed empire, and we begin the work of building something better." The Chancellor laughed bitterly. It was a harsh, empty sound. "You think this is victory?" he said, looking at General Stone. "You think you have one? You have destroyed the only order this galaxy has ever known. Without the Council, there will be chaos. Wars between species. Civilizations collapsing. You have doomed everyone." Stone was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm and tired. "Maybe you are right," he admitted. "Maybe there will be difficult times ahead. Maybe some species will fight each other. Maybe the transition will be painful." He leaned forward, his eyes meeting the Chancellor's. "But here's what you never understood. Order built on lies is not really order. Peace maintained through murder is not really peace. You kept the galaxy quiet by killing anyone who might disturb your control. That is not civilization. That is a prison." The Chancellor's face twisted with anger. "We kept the peace for 10,000 years. You kept your power for 10,000 years, Stone corrected. And you destroyed 147 species to do it. Children who were never born, cultures that were erased from existence, dreams that were murdered before they could begin." He gestured to the holographic image of Alina Vasquez. Ambassador Vasquez understood something you never did. She understood that truth matters more than comfort, that justice matters more than order, that the life of the weakest being in the galaxy is worth more than the power of the strongest empire. Stone stood, his old bones protesting, but his spirit unbroken. "Could have been great," he said to the Chancellor. "Your species, your council, could have used your power to lift others up, instead of pushing them down. You could have built a galaxy where every species had a chance to grow and flourish. Instead, you chose fear. You chose control. You chose death." He shook his head slowly. "And now you have lost everything." The Chancellor's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "What will you do with me?" "Execute me, as we executed your ambassador." The room fell silent. Everyone waited for Stone's answer. The general turned away from the Chancellor and looked at the gathered representatives. He saw Selenari and Kathrani and Vorix. He saw species that had been enemies and species that had been friends. He saw the future of the galaxy sitting together in one room. 10 years ago, Stone said, "I wanted to kill you. I wanted to burn your worlds and salt your fields and make your children pay for the crimes of their parents. I was angry. I was hurt. I was human." He took a deep breath. "But Ambassador Vasquez did not die so that we could become monsters. She died believing that the galaxy could be better, that truth and justice could triumph over tyranny. that even in the darkest times, there was hope for a brighter future. He turned back to the Chancellor. So no, we will not execute you. We will not torture you. We will not make your people suffer for your sins. The Chancellor looked confused, almost frightened by this unexpected mercy. Then what? He asked. Stone smiled, and for the first time in years, it was a genuine smile. You will live, he said. You will watch as the species you oppressed build new civilizations. You will see the children of races you tried to destroy grow up and reach for the stars. You will witness the galaxy that Ambassador Vasquez died for. A galaxy of free peoples working together, learning from each other, growing stronger not through conquest but through cooperation. He pointed to the holographic image of Alina. You will spend the rest of your long life seeing everything you feared come true. Humanity did not destroy the galaxy. We helped save it. And every day that you wake up, you will remember that you could have been part of this. You could have been a builder instead of a destroyer. You chose wrong. And now you must live with that choice forever. Chancellor had no response. He simply stared at the floor, broken in a way that no prison could have accomplished. General Stone addressed the assembly one final time. The war is over, he announced. But our work has just begun. We must build new systems of cooperation. We must heal the wounds of 10,000 years. We must create a galaxy where no species fears extinction at the hands of its neighbors. He looked at each representative in turn. This will not be easy. It will take generations. There will be setbacks and disagreements and moments when we wonder if we made the right choice. But I believe with all my heart that we can succeed. Because we have something the old council never had. What is that? The Vorix representative asked. Stone gestured to the room full of different beings. Different shapes, different minds, all united by a common purpose. Trust, he said simply. We have learned to trust each other. Humans and Selenari and Kethrani and Vorix and all the rest. We are different, but we have faced darkness together. And that has made us family. The assembly rose to their feet, not in applause, but in respect. In acknowledgement that something profound had happened in this room. General. Stone walked to the holographic image of Alina Vasquez. He reached out as if to touch her face, but his hand passed through the light. We did it, Alina, he whispered. We told the truth. We fought for justice. And we won. The image flickered gently, almost as if she was nodding. Outside the station, the stars burned bright and eternal. The same stars that had witnessed 10,000 years of tyranny would now witness something new. Something better. The galaxy was free, and humanity. The species that had been scheduled for quiet extinction had helped set it free, not through hatred, not through revenge, but through courage and truth. And the simple belief that every life has value, Ambassador Alina Vasquez smiled from her holographic frame, was frozen forever in a moment of hope. Her sacrifice had not been in vain. The reckoning was complete, and the future was just beginning.